Good evening. If you wish to address the council, please complete the request to speak form at the entryway there and give it to our city clerk. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time. This time I will call to order the City of Grand Terrace City Council meeting for October 10th, 2017. Our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor Alger Keogh of Azure Hills Seventh-day Adventist Church, and immediately following that, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Council Member Bill Hussey. If you would, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, this evening as we gather in these council chambers, we are mindful of our neighbors in Orange County who have been having to face these fires that have caused great damage. Our hearts go to them. We're mindful of our neighbors further north who have lost lives in addition to property, and our hearts go to them. We ask for all those that have been affected by these disasters, these fires, that you would grant them peace in the midst of the violence that they're experiencing, that you would give them a sense of purpose and direction, that they might accomplish the tasks that still lay ahead in the cleanup and in the rebuilding that needs to take place. While we are mindful of them, we also look right here to the city of Grand Terrace, our leadership, our residents, the citizens of this city. We ask that your hand would be upon all, that as we serve each day, as we go about our responsibilities, that you would grant us wisdom, that you would grant us a sense of your presence, and that you would grant us prosperity, Lord. And so we surrender this meeting to you tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in honoring this meeting. So I sing the pledge. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Alger. Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Hussey.
Present.
Councilmember Wilson.
I am here.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Present. Mayor McNabo.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. My understanding is Councilmember Reinars is on his way and will join us when the traffic allows. No? No, he will not. Okay. He cannot be with us this evening. We'll move on first to an announcement that we have, and this is a time of us to reflect on one of our own who was lost in the Las Vegas tragedy. And so we will be closing our meeting tonight in memory of Dana Gardner. But tonight we have our county assessor, Bob Dutton, here to share with us a few words about Dana. And then also from the assistant county recorder's office, or excuse me, from the county recorder's office, we will have Joni Finwell, who will join us following Assessor Bob Dutton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council and residents of Grand Terrace. I come here tonight to, first of all, thank you for adjourning in Dana's memory, but also to speak a little bit about Dana Gardner and who she was. Now, I didn't actually know Dana for that long. I met her when I was first elected to the office of the Assessor Recorder's Office, when I was doing a review of all the personnel and so forth, trying to figure out how I was going to restructure the operation so that we could make sure we were giving the best possible service to the citizens who reside in San Bernardino County. And Dana was one of the people I had interviewed to consider for possible senior management positions. The thing that impressed me about Dana from day one, I remember telling Joni, my assistant recorder, after I met Dana, I said, you know, keep an eye on her. She's a keeper, okay, because she has the right attitude. She had a dedicated, she was a dedicated public servant. It was pretty obvious to me. You know, as most of you, you start getting a gut feeling about people you meet. You kind of just an instinctive thing. It's an intuition that we get. And with Dana, I got nothing but positive, signs from Dana. Not just because that she'd been with the recorder's office for 26 years, and she actually worked her way up from an entry-level position. But she was somebody that I felt was a true public servant, that she had what was in the best interest of the people, the public, that she was serving. And it wasn't just a job to her, it was a calling. And so that was what really impressed me about her. As I got to know Dana better, and we started looking at different programs coming up in pending legislation that the Sacramento was looking at adopting, and how it would impact our operations and things. She really demonstrated time and time again that she was one of my go-to people. If I needed advice, there's a lot of rules and regulations that we have to deal with, not in the recorder's office and clerk's office, but also in the assessor's office. And Dana was somebody, she was one of my go-to people that I could go to for advice, because I also wanted to know how these would impact the operations, how it would impact the people that we're serving. So she had a tremendous wealth of knowledge. And the other thing, too, about Dana, so often you can appoint people into positions, but you cannot demand that the people that they're supervising will respect them. They have to kind of earn that. And Dana had that respect with her coworkers. She was somebody that they respected, and other people up and down the state of California. Part of our job is to also represent the San Bernardino County Recorder and Clerk's Office with the other counties up and down the state. We have a state association, both for the recorder and the clerks, and Dana was very much part of the team that would represent our interests in those statewide organizations. We also have an electronic recording service that was implemented a few years ago, but it never quite got off the ground. And when I first came on board, I said, we either need to make this thing work or we should just get rid of it, one of the two. And so Dana took charge of that, and she made it work. Most of the cities in the county of San Bernardino take advantage of that service. It doesn't cost anything, but it cuts down on the amount of travel time that city employees spend trying to go to the recorder's office in order to record documents and things of that nature. Dana was somebody who, as I said before, was respected by her coworkers because of her attitude. And she always had a glass half full type attitude. She never questioned why. It wasn't like, I can't do this. It's like, okay, fine. How do I do this? I mean, she had that, like I said, can-do type attitude. And Dana, you can tell from the outpouring here the other night, Saturday, for the candlelight vigil, that she was really loved by a lot of people. I mean, there were people that, frankly, left the recorder's office a few years ago that made the trip to come here to pay the proper respect. And her children that she's survived by, what great examples for all parents to see those kids and how strong and brave they are is once again kind of a testament to Dana and what she was, not only to her coworkers, but to her grandkids and her family and friends. But she's somebody that is going to be deeply missed by everyone. And frankly, I'm a better person for knowing Dana. She really was a great public servant. And I want to thank you once again for paying her this respect. And she's going to be somebody that's going to be sorely missed and by a lot of people. May God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. I appreciate you being here and sharing those words with us. Ms. Finwell?
Good evening, and I just want to say thank you for honoring Dana Gardner. I had the pleasure of working with her for the past 3 years, and just to kind of further reiterate what Senator Dutton was sharing, she was just such a valued employee and so dedicated. And to speak to that dedication, because we worked together so closely for the past 3 years, I got to know her a little bit more than just at work and got to talk to her about her life and what mattered to her. And what made her such a wonderful, dedicated public servant was her dedication first and foremost to her family. She was always the first one in and the last to leave, but she took time to make sure she visited her son and grandchildren in Wyoming. Or with the tragedy that took place that took her life, she was with her daughter on something that she was looking forward to attending. She always put her family first and was so proud of them. And if you go to her office, you can see pictures of her family that just meant so much to her mother and father and just all the family and friends. She was a dedicated public servant. It was important to her, and she had a passion serving San Bernardino County. With her talents, she probably could have taken other offers to go other places, but this was where she lived. This is where she planted her roots, and she was proud to serve the public and do a good job and to teach others to do the same. It meant the world to her to be able to serve as the deputy recorder. And lastly, she loved this community. She loved calling Grand Terrace her home. She often would take lunches and run home to take care of her dogs, or would tell me about different things. She was coming home, she was leaving early to come to a council meeting when she had an opinion that she wanted to share. But she loved telling everybody that she lived in Grand Terrace and her heart was here as well. And those were some of the attributes of Dana that will be missed the most: her heart and her dedication and her love for her community and the city of Grand Terrace. So again, thank you for recognizing her tonight. Please keep her family and friends in prayer, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Finwell. I appreciate you taking the time to come and share that with us. I had the honor of taking a plaque to her family. When we close in honor or memory of somebody, we do have a memorial certificate that we give to the family. And so I delivered this to her beautiful family since they were not able to come tonight, understandably. Grand Terrace in Memoriam. The Grand Terrace City Council extends its deepest sympathy to you in the passing of your loved one, Dana Gardner, in whose memory the City Council did recognize in tribute and reverence as the council adjourned its meeting of October 10th, 2017, and we will do just that. I did want to give my colleagues an opportunity if they would like to take time to share any thoughts at this point. Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you for your fine words. When any one of us suffers a tragedy, obviously, we are all diminished by it. I really appreciate you being here and representing Dana and her family. I appreciate all the words and the thoughts and the help that has been forwarded. And we live in a dangerous world. And I'm sorry it's that way. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I want to extend my deepest condolences. It has been, for me personally, one of the most miserable weeks that I can remember. That Sunday, I went to Yucaipa to be with a junior high and high school classmate that lost her son-in-law in the San Bernardino massacre. And as a retired county employee, it really hits home these kinds of tragedies that have been hitting the county family. I'm also invited next week to one of the victims of the massacre. Ms. Velasco's family is having a memoriam for her. And, you know, when you think about the clustering of memoriams of families is just horrendous. It's just overwhelming. My daughter, my children were all raised in Grand Terrace from kindergarten up, and my daughter from Phoenix says, a good friend of mine said his girlfriend was shot, and he was going to update us on what's going on. And so I'm at home, and I see the son, and I post it, and she goes, he texted us she didn't make it, and Mom, that article you posted, that's her. You know, and this tragedy, the number of people it affected in our Southern California community is just overwhelming, and I just want to send my prayers and my thoughts to everyone affected by this. And I'm really deeply upset, and I have to say this with people that are on social media continuing to promote hate and uncivil ideas. I think what makes this country strong and is what kept us a powerhouse was that we were able to be pragmatic. That used to be what Americans were, pragmatic. You put a lot of your differences aside and figured out what you could be unified on. And we're beginning to lose that, and it concerns me very deeply. And with that, I close with, may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the memorial service, and it was a beautiful service and honor Dana. You know, her friends, family, strangers coming out to honor a great woman. I got to meet her one time when she came to the council meeting. I was also a civilian, and we spoke highly on a development that was going to be across from her street. So she was a little spitfire that night, and her voice was definitely heard. And her voice being heard, we actually got, the residents stuck together and it got changed. And she lives around the corner from my in-laws, and so I remember seeing her out there smiling all the time. My wife, mutual acquaintance, they knew her. We have a friend that played volleyball with her. So she was, close-knit in this community, talking about putting roots down. And that's one thing about Grand Terrace, to say before, it's a small 3 square miles, and we're all brothers and sisters here. We all know each other. We all look out at each other's kids. We look out after their houses, and it's just one big family. But they were saying, it's sad, things like this happen. There's evil in the world, but there's also good people in the world. And the good people have had to stand up against the evil. God, like I said, God knows when you take your first breath, He knows when He takes your last. And we just have to make the best of every day, And Dana was a Christian. She accepted God at Emmanuel Baptist, and she's up in heaven. And once again, she's probably looking down, what's the big fuss about? But she will always be in our thoughts in the city, As the mayor quoted on the thing, Grand Terrace lost an angel, and she's an angel up there. And thoughts and prayers for the family and her friends, and Grand Terrace will truly miss her. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Again, I want to say thank you to both of you for taking the time to come out and for coming out to her memorial over the weekend. There were some community members that put it together. It was just a nice thing. I know a lot of the community just really wanted to do something for her. And as much as I know, there's no making sense of why she was taken from the community and from those that loved her and those that depended on her. But I began thinking that maybe the focus should be on not trying to make sense of her being taken, but making sense of the life that she led, making sense of the wisdom that she imparted to others, to the lessons that she taught, to the support and loving and caring that she was. And I know part of the pain is that she's not here for those things anymore, but I think that the community that knew her, the coworkers that knew her, were touched by her and will continue to be touched by those things that she left behind. So thank you again, and thank you to staff for putting this together today. And I'm going to move on to our consent calendar. Our consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, and they'll be acted upon by the City Council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any items to be removed at this time?
Madam Mayor, I have a couple of questions on number 4.
Okay, so we will remove the check register at this time. I will entertain a motion on the ballots.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so motion by Councilmember Wilson, second by Councilmember Hussey for the consent calendar minus item number 4, which is the check register. If you would, please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Wilson, Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Robles voting yes, Mayor McNamara voting yes.
All right, so item number 4 is the check register. Your question, Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for the city manager, if you could, or whoever you'd like to designate. I see on packet page number 19, we have a check number 74532 to CHJ. It is for an amount of $24,067. Is this something, I mean, can you identify what it is first, and it'll probably answer my question?
Yes, sir. I believe this is Public Works. Alan, you can answer that for me.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Wilson. Alan Finch, Public Works Director, for the record. That item is for our geotechnical consultant who did geotechnical testing for the slurry seal project that we had.
I'm sorry, storage unit, you said?
Slurry seal.
Slurry seal.
Slurry seal project.
Oh.
So they tested the material, and the contractors monitored the contractor as he progressed in the project.
Okay, so it's not soil stuff so much as it is paving and paving section and inspection
And
and
material that they were
material
laying
that
down,
they were-
that it was
okay.
mixed properly.
lab stuff as well?
Yes, lab tests.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Whew, 24 grand. Okay. I usually bounce that against about $125 an hour, and it seems like it's a lot. That's the reason why I asked. And then apparently, obviously, that answers the question that we can't really offset the cost. I thought if it was any initial investigation in relation to the Lewis proposition, that at least we could offset that, but no. And then I guess for the city manager, have we realized any benefits as far as the liability insurance? You know, I see a pretty good chunk of insurance payment that we're making, and I know we were going to investigate pretty hard to see whether or not we could change our status, considering the fact that we have somebody that's actively engaged in a lease on the child care area.
Yes, sir. I can have Ms. Fortune answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson, yeah, Cynthia Fortune. As a result of the reduction in staffing, we did send a letter to JPIA informing them of what was happening. So they made an adjustment. So our actual liability this year is, I want to say, and I will confirm, approximately $50,000 less than it was the prior year.
50,000. Oh, that's good. Thank you. That sounds good. And then I'd just like to point out to the public, as well, benefit of the public as well as my constituents, the bleeding continues with the child care situation. We know it, obviously. We know that we're having to make some interim decisions in relation to it, but it's a good thing that we've, made the decision to get out of the business, considering the fact that we're getting close to $300,000 worth of what I would consider bleeding, unfortunately. And let's hope that things smooth out and somebody picks this business up, because things have changed, and not to the good for us. So that's a good chunk of change. That's all I had.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson. While we have the check register out, I have a question about an item on packet page 33. And this is in relation to legal services, specifically invoice number 82538. And it references Tesoro Court. And I'm wondering where that is and what matter that is in relation to. 33.
33. And the number again, check number was?
It was invoice number 82538.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes. Ms. Molina can answer that question.
Madam Mayor, members of the council. This was the invoice for the review by the city attorneys of the CCNRs for the Van Buren project that Aegis Developers is constructing. That cost is offset by a deposit.
Okay, I didn't recognize the street name. So that's one of the street names in their development?
The private street, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, any other questions on the check register while we have it open? All right. All motion approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Wilson and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Robles voting yes, Mayor McNabo voting yes.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items not appearing on the regular agenda because of restrictions contained in California law. The City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or request more information for clarification. I also may request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment or request a matter be agendized for a future meeting. And I see we have some requests to speak. Thank you. All right. We will begin with Don Larkin.
Don Larkin, Veterans Wall of Freedom. Madam Mayor, honorable members of the City Council, and to all the residents of the community. On behalf of the Veterans Wall of Freedom Organization and the Foundation of Grand Terrace, I would like to invite you to the Veterans Day celebration that will be held at Veterans Freedom Park on Saturday, November 11th at 11 a.m. And you may have noticed I said celebration. Yet for this year, we really want to salute the veterans who have served and who are serving in the United States military. And we also want to celebrate the many freedoms that we enjoy today because of the service of these veterans. U.S. Air Force veteran Jacqueline Moore Rodriguez is scheduled to be the keynote speaker, explaining the importance of the Veterans Wall of Freedom to her family. Dance Dimensions will also be presenting a special patriotic performance. After the Veterans Day celebration, veterans and the family will have an opportunity to reserve a plaque on the Veterans Wall of Freedom for a long-lasting honor for the veterans' service to our country. And as a reminder, all veterans are eligible for a plaque. Veterans and their family are also invited to bring a small memento of the veterans' service, such as a photograph, a unit patch, or medal, to be included in time capsules that will be placed in the monument in the future. Families and residents can write thank you notes to veterans that would be placed in a time capsule. So for more information about the Veterans Day ceremony and the Veterans Wall of Freedom, please visit our website at veteranswalloffreedom.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Larkin. Next speaker is Janice Maxinoff.
Hi, again, I hate being up here. My name is Janice Maxinoff. I live at 21816 Vivienda here in Grand Terrace. I haven't received my notice for the Planning Commission meeting on the 19th, and it's a very important meeting directly affecting my property. Myself and a few other residents, property owners, requested a reversal of that zone change for that area that was made in the 80s. The zone change was made against the residents' and landowners' wishes. Janet Rich was one of the owners that was at the meeting at the time. I will mention not one thing has changed since the change 30 years ago. I thought staff had been directed to research the possibility of reversing the zone change. Now the meeting is about adding a new Ag 2 overlay. From what I understand, an overlay does nothing for anyone wanting to farm or raise livestock or whatever unless they pay for a conditional use permit and they are approved. How confusing and misleading is this? Again, all of the people I've spoke to and would be directly affected by this do not want this area anything other than residential ag, period. If someone wants to subdivide, that's a fight for another day. On the weed abatement issue, we just had our third fire in as many months down in our area. We and all of the houses above were very lucky that the winds had died down. If the winds were still blowing, it would have swept across that weed field so fast and consumed us and continued up the terrace to Vivienda. Who knows how far and wide it would have been. Just turn on the news. The K-rail that was installed a few years back to deter motorized vehicles from access to the bike trail in River Bottom has done nothing but prevent the fire department and sheriff's access to it. They were so confused last night. I mean, they did a great job. That fire was gone. They were out there till 10, 11 o'clock last night with chainsaws. They did a great job, but they had trouble getting access to that fire. And I'm asking the city to ask staff or whoever, is there any possibility of making some kind of access for the fire trucks or the police department to get onto that trail and closer to the river when things like this happen? And then, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McShane. Mr. Duffy, did you have any response to that?
Regarding the access to the fire trail, I'll certainly work with the fire department to figure out if there anything that's prohibiting them from that particular property. In relation to the comment regarding the Planning Commission meeting that's going to be happening this Thursday, I'll find out. I'm not sure why she hasn't received the notice. We'll find that out. But staff is trying to look at the various property owners and trying to come up with a mechanism to provide that vehicle for the 1 acre ranchettes and also for farming. And so the Ag 2 overlay that's being proposed will be placed over the area where the residents want to do farming and also over the area where there's a private property and they've indicated they do not want farming. By placing the Ag overlay over all of the area, at any point in time when anyone decides they want to do farming, they will be able to access that opportunity by submitting a conditional use permit. So it was staff's intent was to be able to provide, based on the council's direction, to be able to allow those farm housing agricultural-based properties to exist. And we believe this is the mechanism that's going to get us there.
Okay, so the determination at the council or at the Planning Commission will be a recommendation to the council?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Janet Rich.
My name is Janet Rich. I live at 11701 Terrace Avenue. I also did not receive any notification of the next meeting, and it affects me. So I'd like, the last meeting we had, I never got anything in the mail either, so I'd like to see that remedied. I have lived at this address. I've had the property since 1967. I've lived there for 45 years. After reading the agenda for the rezoning of the 40 acres for the October 19th meeting, it feels like 1984 all over again. When the city was rezoning our property, all three ranch owners, the Wrights, the Hineses, and myself, attended all the meetings and repeatedly told them we did not want to change our agricultural zoning. Back then we had agricultural zoning. And they ignored our pleas and went on to do as they pleased. They said, oh, we're going to give you light industry, your property will be more valuable, but we'll leave you with an agricultural overlay so you can still have your animals. Well, then somehow or another, that agricultural overlay got taken off, and nobody can tell us when, where, or how. So that's what happens as things go by, which irritates me. So I would like to know what's going to be going on again, because it seems like this is a continual fight every time we turn around. I've been participating in these battles for 33 years to stop all the dirty development that tries to come in there for light industry. And you can't bring truck traffic down Terrace Avenue because it's too dilapidated. And earlier this year, I guess it was, or last year, we had a meeting here about a trucking company that was going to come down there. And bring 125 semis in and out every day. And
You said that, I'm sorry, you said that was last month?
no, I said it was either this year or just last year. I
Okay.
can't remember exactly when.
Okay.
So it's a continual fight when you talk about this light industry thing. And so I strongly object to anything that's going to take that agriculture away from us.
Okay.
Also about the fires, and I know but the fire was last night, and if that wind had not died down, we'd be in trouble. I filed a complaint with the weed abatement this morning on that property. There's about 28 acres. The guy has not cleaned it off. The weeds are 3-4 feet tall. There's tumbleweeds everywhere. And if that fire had started 2 or 3 hours earlier, we probably wouldn't have our homes right now. Quit beeping. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. I appreciate you coming out tonight. If, Ms. Rich and Maxinoff, if you will give your addresses to the city clerk to make sure that we have them. I noticed they're not on here. I want to make sure that they have your addresses so we can send you a notice. And our next speaker is Becky Giroux.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, and the residents of Grand Terrace. Becky Giroux, 21891 Vivienda Avenue. And I'm coming before you tonight also with my neighbors to share my concern about my neighborhood. After receiving the agenda for the Planning Commission, I did receive one, for the meeting held on October 19, 2017, I went back and I reviewed the video of the City Council meeting that was held on Valentine's Day 2017. I was in attendance that day. Current homeowners and residents spoke out on changing the zoning codes and the maps on the 40 acres located at the northwest of the 215 freeway in Grand Terrace. Several of my neighbors asked that the zoning be changed back to what it was in 1978, agriculture uses with ancillary residential, and only amending the zoning code and the map. It appeared that the City Council agreed with the concerns and were moving towards a solution, with Council approving the addendum, agreeing to bear the cost for the lower level analysis on zoning code and map changes. The Planning Commission agenda on the 19th is only adding the agriculture overlay, as Janice spoke to, allowing limited commercial agriculture and single-family residential as accessory use, not the underlying zoning. And, you know, I appreciate the steps that the city's taking, and to Mr. Duffy's point, yes, they're adding the ag overlay. However, the remaining issue is the current zoning. You know, anyone can come in, and they can come in with their industry. It's still open to do that, rather than being what we want, which is the agriculture, the residential. This was not what was discussed February 14th at the City Council meeting. Council is aware we do not have the infrastructure in that part of town for industrial usage, which is why today there's nothing there. When the manhole builders tried to come in 2006, they wanted to come and spread their cement dust all over our neighborhood. The neighbors had to come together and hire an attorney to stop that action. We shouldn't have to do that. That's why we're here today. If the Planning Commission and City Council approves this proposal from city staff, we're back at square one with the same concerns on developing the area as industrial, which a Planning Commission has heard many times and will continue to hear in the future. The neighbors also spoke about the trucks getting stuck in that part of town. There's no signage on Barton Road to say, warning, do not turn onto Grand Terrace Road. You can't get out. There was a little sign, and up until a couple of days ago, the sign's a little bit bigger, but it's still not appropriate signage, and it's still not the signs, there's no signs on Barton Road. And I'll be real quick. There was also a representative at this same council meeting, State Assembly Member's Office, who shared AB 551 legislation, finds that it's in the public best interest to promote sustainability, and there's places and opportunities for rural organic farming, and that the Santa Ana River area provided for that opportunity. So what I'm asking tonight is to please consider the initial request of the residents by not allowing industry to go in that area. We're already breathing in the carcinogens from the freeway and from La Cadena.
Ms. Giroux, would you please wrap up?
Yes, ma'am. We just want less commercial traffic, better air quality, and agriculture opportunities for the future of our residents. And one more real quick note. The Grand Terrace Lions Club is having their pancake breakfast this Sunday next to B of A. So come out and join us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts with us tonight, Ms. Giroux. Our next speaker is Jeffrey McConnell.
Jeffrey McConnell, 21758 Walnut Avenue. The meeting on October 19th, basically what we're trying to ask you, the neighborhood over there, is basically just to pull it. This shouldn't even be happening. We're going to stop the request. I reviewed both meetings, one in February, the second one in March, regarding this, and this is not where we were asking the council and what the council was basically discussing. We're attempting to change the underlying zoning back to agriculture, 1 house per acre, creating a green zone intentionally. Many communities, especially Riverside, is really big on protecting the green zones. Grand Terrace has none left except these 40 acres. This is it. Build, build, build. Everywhere we're building, and in a lot of areas that's great. But we have a lot of parks in town, but we really have no green zone, and this is the last place you can make it. You can't do it on top of the mountain. So that's really why we started this whole thing, and I talked to my neighbors. I helped fight over the years some of the dirty development down there, and I've always known the answer to this was to change the zoning back to agriculture. That's one of the reasons why I bought the property down there. I also turned in July, I think, about 200 and some signatures of a petition. If you guys got a chance to read the heading, all those people, now it's up to 270 actually, they want to see a 40-acre green zone down there where not just me, but other people come down there and have horse riding, chicken ranch, flower ranch, whatever. Just a nice big green zone for the kids. I'm sure some of you have seen my the food giveaways I've been having down there, and the people bring their kids down. They just have a great time, take pictures with my giant squash and my big fake cow that I put out in the field. And Pete, you can see the smiles on the little kids' faces, and they actually are amazed at what they see in my little quarter-acre garden I got down there. So I'm basically saying this is a waste of staff time, manhole builders. Every time we have a battle, it just ends up being a waste of staff time, costs the city money. So we're asking you to pull that and change it back to what we originally were talking about. The other thing is the weed abatement, the 19 acres to the north, they're not cutting their weeds down. A lot of them are 5 feet tall. Those 3 fires in the last 3 months, if the wind was in the right direction, we would have got burned up. And then there would have been lawsuits. I've called the county twice over the years, a few months, and complained constantly. I even ran into the field inspector. He had my complaint with him, and there's not doing anything on the 19 acres. Also, I've been turning in the more dumping on the private property of those 19 acres. Most recently, 2-3 nights ago, there's more dumping there. There's like at least 3 or 4 different dumping sites that have happened over the last month or so down there. And I'm not asking the city to clean it up because I don't want taxpayer dollars going down there. As well as the high weeds along Terrace Avenue I sent you a picture of. They are encroaching into the street 2 and 3 feet, which is a public works safety issue. Please take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Is there anybody else who would like to speak at this time? Bobby Forbes.
Bobby Forbes, 11850 Burns Avenue. I did receive my letter regarding the Planning Commission meeting, just so you know what areas got them. About the weed abatement, county went through town and cited some of the properties that I oversee on rentals. Absurd requests, absolutely absurd. I went through and looked at these properties. I don't even see it. I think the guy was looking at this house and wrote this address. That's how absurd it is, because the houses next door to mine need work. So we're going to have gardeners go in and do some things just to make it look better, but I don't see any of the items that he checked off on these lists. Happened on multiple homes. It was from the county, not the city. So I'm not surprised that they're not taking care of anything down here because they're up here bothering the residents. They should be out here in the fields or something. I don't mean to be stupid about that statement, but he's not doing his job. Regarding the area where Jeffrey has bought the land to build homes, it's not just one home, it's to build homes. That's flood zone. I'm not concerned about, we're not going to let industrial go in there. We've all fought that. We paid a lot of money to not let the manhole builders come in there. But I think that if he's going to build homes down there, they should be large enough parcels that it's not going to compromise the area too much. Just because you sell somebody a ranchette doesn't mean they're going to grow fruits and vegetables and pumpkins on it. Look at High Grove. Probably 45% of the homes that I sell on the half acre in High Grove, you go in their backyard, it's weeds. There's nothing there. The other percentage is nice, but the majority is not. It's weeds. And it's a weed abatement problem for those. So I'm concerned about that. They live on big parcels. I don't know how big your parcels are, but maybe if it's going to be allowed to be broke down, let it be 2.5 acre parcels or something larger, as opposed to having so many homes go in down there by the power lines and in the flood zone. I'm also concerned that the city of Grand Terrace, when homes go in down there somewhere down the road, are going to have a problem when it does flood and there's something that happens. It's just a eerie feeling that I have because we know stuff happens. I'd like to thank the fire department for getting down there. I came home just as that was happening, and they were on it, and they always get confused down there. When the ambulance goes, they get lost. They just don't, any more than the trucks that get lost coming down there. Jeff's car got smashed. You know, from that, I saw the truck the next day in our neighborhood that came by his house and got stuck. We need better signage. Part of the problem is probably that it's Colton and Grand Terrace. And where they're dumping the trash, a lot of it is Colton. I always call their public works. I'm on the phone describing it. They're really good about getting out. But when you get down by the railroad tracks, it's kind of mixed, you know, who owns it, whose trash is it, who's going to go pick it up. But they know they can get away with it down there. It just really stinks because we see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forbes. Mr. Duffy.
Yes, Mayor. Although this really is a premature discussion regarding the item that's going to be happening on that Thursday, but one of the important things to note is that the direction that we're going really is about ag-related businesses. So you can have an ag-related business on the site, but you can't have a residential unit without an ag-related business. And that's so. But all this will be explained at the Planning Commission meeting when they present the proposal. And from that point, they'll take public comment and it'll move up the chain. But I would just urge everyone to, if you have a vested interest, to attend the meeting and put your comments in, because it's going to be the draft proposal, so you'll have an opportunity to make comments there.
Okay. As far as the weed abatement, we contract with the county for that. Is that correct?
County Fire takes care of that.
Okay.
So we will work with them to find out what's going on, especially that property. And normally what happens, Mayor, is that they tell you that you have to clear this. If you don't clear it, then they send someone out to clear it for you. So I'll find out what's happening.
Okay. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak during this time? All right. See no takers, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council for their communications, starting with Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody who came out tonight. I just got to say, I'm a retired man now after almost 35 years of government service. So if you see me walking around with 2 dogs, I'm walking rather slow and, you know, causing traffic jams. That's why. So feels kind of weird. You know, used to get up to work every day. Now I'm taking care of the granddaughter and doing honeydew chores. I think I better go back to work. But just one thing I wanted to, on the League of Cities, I didn't get a chance to give my comments on it last time. It was on the thing that I had a vote on September 15th was about proposals to go to the legislature. The League is still fighting the AB 109s and the Prop 47s and the Prop 57s, and the AB 109s transferring, what that is, transferring nearly 45,000 felony inmates from the state system in the lower jail system. So if you guys remember back a couple years ago, the state of California was getting sued because of the overcrowding in the prison system. Well, their solution was to make the felons into misdemeanors and the misdemeanors into infractions and clear the system out. Now, what that did, that caused a burden on the cities and caused a burden on the residents and citizens and also our local police force. So pretty much they're arresting the guys, giving an infraction, and the criminals walking out of jail at the same time they get done with their booking. So the league is still fighting that. And Proposition 57, the Public Safety Rehabilitation Act with voters, was basically the same thing, that the increase of crime. And since this has been in effect, California experienced an upstick in overall crime. Property crime is up 145%. Violent crime is up 57%. Arrest rates, of course, dropped because most of this isn't a crime. And drug offense is up 68%. Now, the thing on the drug offense is before, when they had a person who was stealing or something, and the main reason why is because of a drug or alcohol abuse, the state was, or the judge was able to implement a mandated program for these people to get help to try to curtail that. But now, since it's only an infraction, the judge has no right to mandate the programs. And as you know, most of the crimes are under $950. So there's my take, especially being law enforcement, you know, if you committed the crime, you got to pay the consequences, and there's not going to be any consequences when you just get a ticket. So basically, we're all getting the effect of it, because you figure if somebody's now shoplifting out of Stater Brothers is not going to chase the people. They're just going to pass on the cost to us. So extra 25 cents on a dozen eggs. So, and another thing we had on the thing where Gardner got his leaf blower stolen. So, you know, another infraction, it's under $950. So that poor Gardner, instead of, you know, paying for his kids for something for school, he's got to buy another leaf blower. So it affects the victims and our residents and, of course, our city. So the League of City is strong on trying to oppose that. They're fighting Sacramento, and a lot of you people know who go up there to Sacramento. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and hopefully one day that wheel will be oiled, and they'll take notice. And let's see, that's about all I have, Mayor, on that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the e-trash drop-off that we had last weekend. I know my wife appreciated it a great deal. Not only e-trash, but also a lot of the debris that I accumulate, because she accuses me of being half a hoarder at least. And she's probably right. We live in a dangerous world, as I pointed out before. You know, it's an ever-changing situation. Our best way is to be prepared. And as you know, the city has adopted a stance where we are accelerating our search training and trying to be prepared in relation to the plan that's been advanced. It's gone to the state so that it can be reviewed by the state. Any suggestions the state has, I'm sure we'll follow. But I think also, you know, we were talking about hurricanes and floods and wildfires and the Vegas massacre and everything we've seen in relation to those kinds of circumstances. And believe it or not, we had an earthquake the other day. It was only a 3.2. For us, actually, my wife and I had a bet whether it was a 2.8 or a 3 plus, and she was right. It was the night before last, but it was centered in Loma Linda, which means it was on the San Jacinto Fault. The more that they happen, in this case it was 23 in the last month, the less stress we have on the San Jacinto Fault, so that's not a bad thing from that standpoint. But we always, you know, California is, you know, the most likely to have a fairly serious event. So not only preparation of the basics, but also preparation spiritually. It's the only way we survive these things. And I appreciate the time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Wilson. Mayor Pro Tem Robles.
Yes, I attended the monthly meeting of the Board of Omitrans. It was just routine things, buying tires and reporting on the continuing progress of the Aero train and converting all of the buses to a different kind of fuel. But I just wanted to share that getting up very early that morning for the meeting, My husband asked me if I had read the paper, sometimes read it online. Said, anything significant? And he says, yes. Council member Pat Gilbreth from the city of Redlands has passed away, and she's the chair of Omnitrans. So that was a sad day for all us members of Omnitrans. Very kind woman. I think it's just fabulous when you are such a great person that no one has but good feelings about you, and I just wanted to share that with you, and also got through Omnitrans a notification that the 32-year employee of Omnitrans, who was in charge of the maintenance division, was in a conference for Omnitrans, suffered a fall that ended up being fatal. So it was very, very sad time for many people. Also, just wanted to ask the staff to please contact Walt and his wife, Monique, the proprietors of La Pasta Italia, so we might recognize them on their retirement and changing over the ownership to the new owners, and maybe they'd like to be introduced. That would be something to find out. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I attended the SBCTA board meeting, and there was tribute to Councilmember Gilbreth at that meeting as well. She served on Sandbag for a number of years, and a number of the people that are still on the board remembered working with her and had fond memories to share. As part of this report, I will report on the things that were not approved at the Metro Valley study session, because those all moved forward and were approved by the board. So we received an update on fiscal year 17-18 work goals and objectives. We had hearings to consider resolutions of necessity for parcels on the US 395 Phase 1 project near Adelanto and Victorville. Those, there were 3 parcels, and I think we ended up only having to consider 2 of them, since one had already met the negotiations to that point. The public hearing to consider establishing a fee schedule for the use of electric vehicle charging stations. You know, one of the things that we do look at here in the state is the idea of going to electric vehicles, and I know our governor has expressed the desire to somehow outlaw the combustion engine. But when I'm seeing that we're just now establishing fees for a few charging stations at SBCTA, that tells me how we really don't have the infrastructure right at this time to support the overall use of electric vehicles. So hopefully, with his desire, there's more of a plan for creating that infrastructure before he does away with those gas-powered motors in our automobiles. We approved the addition of a risk manager position as a full-time exempt SBCTA employee. That's an opportunity for the actual organization to look more closely at the risks that need to be considered. Right now they outsource that, and they don't feel like they're getting as much perspective on really what SBCTA risks are, specifically for the different projects as we get into some of the passenger rail and the express lanes. So they wanted to make sure that they were in a position to protect the member agencies as much as they could. We awarded bicycle and pedestrian facilities and transit stop access improvement projects that were funded through the 2017 Transportation Development Act. We nominated the following new projects for inclusion in the 2018 State Transportation Improvement Program, which is the Interstate 10 Corridor Contract Project 1, 395 Phase 1 widening, the Redlands Passenger Rail Project, the I-10 eastbound truck climbing lane project, and the 395 widening project from approximately Desert Flower to Farmington Road. We approved the nomination of the following projects for Senate Bill 1 Local Partnership Program Formula Program funds and Partnership Program Self-Help Competitive Program funds, and that's the Redlands Passenger Rail Project and the I-10 Corridor Contract. We also had a state and federal legislative update. And I'm just going to go back to, at the end of September on the 27th, this was just something that was really nice. I was invited to Terrace View to read to the students as part of their pre-Red Ribbon Week activities a book called One and Only You. Those that came to read that day read to 4 different classes, and it was just a really nice book about wisdom being passed from mom and dad to a child about all the different ways of, yes, go out and make friends, but remember that you're special, you're unique, you don't have to follow the crowd and do everything that they suggest that you do. And it was just a really nice entry to their Red Ribbon Week and Anti-Bullying Week, and then I believe that they painted rocks and created this little stream after that. So that was just a really nice activity, and it's nice to reflect on those types of things that are happening in our community. And with that, I will end my report and move on to unfinished business, of which we have one item. And this is item number 6 in your packet. This is a report on the status of the interim moratorium on the expansion or establishment of outdoor storage and/or outdoor manufacturing uses. May we have a staff report? Ms. Sandra Molina.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Sandra Molina. I'm the Planning and Development Services Director. I was going to give the Council a brief presentation on an update on the temporary moratorium on outdoor storage and manufacturing uses. A moratorium was adopted by the City Council on May 23rd, and that was a 45-day moratorium. On July 27th, the City Council did extend that moratorium. And at that time, on the same date, the Council directed staff to return in 4 months with an update. And just to provide some background information, what prompted this moratorium is that the city staff had been receiving numerous requests for construction storage yards with outdoor storage of construction and equipment and materials, or heavy equipment sales and display. We had asphalt manufacturing companies that wanted to combine and package asphalt materials outdoors, and we had a user that wanted to store chip material outdoors. And so in looking at these proposals, one of the things that became clear to the city was that our regulations didn't adequately address these type of uses with regard to operational standards or performance standards. And so what we proposed and brought to the council was the moratorium. And the moratorium on outdoor storage and outdoor manufacturing applies currently to the commercial manufacturing zone, which is this lighter blue, restricted manufacturing, which is the darker, and then in the industrial zone districts. And so it's limited to just certain areas of the city. So our general plan does have a designation for light industrial, and it's for uses that can be made compatible with other surrounding uses, and usually those uses which are that are sensitive to light industry, such as commercial or perhaps a residential use. So light industrial would be uses that we could mitigate with regard to noise or dust or vibration. And the type of light manufacturing that's anticipated in our general plan would be light manufacturing, some assembly or small-scale warehousing. And so what staff is proposing to do is to look at our regulations for these zone districts and for these types of uses and make them compatible with the intent of the general plan to ensure consistency and also to mitigate those impacts. And so what we are, our anticipated revisions is to update our definitions. And we have researched other cities and found that they don't distinguish between light, medium, or heavy industrial, which is something that we anticipated wanting to do, but rather they regulate through the type of uses that they permit in the zone districts, and then with regard to the standards that apply to those type of uses. We will be revising the commercial manufacturing, the restricted manufacturing, and the M2 industrial zone districts to align them with the adopted general plan. What we'll do is we'll update the intent of those districts, but we'll also update the list of uses that are permitted or conditionally permitted. And when we update it, we will also look at those uses that are currently listed and delete those that no longer apply. For instance, currently lumber yards are still listed as permissible uses, which we don't really have a lot of land that would allow that type of outdoor activity. They tend to take up a lot of land. Plus, I don't believe that they're consistent with our general plan intentions. And so we would look at the list of uses and update them. We would also create provisions for development and operational standards. For instance, we would put language in our ordinance that would state for any outdoor storage type of use that we would require the installation of block walls to screen those uses, and also landscaping depending on the type of project. We would also put operational requirements such as limit the hours of operations or limit certain activities to indoors only, and limit the outdoor activities. And so this is just a brief update of where we're at. The next steps with regard to the project is that it would go to the Planning Commission at a notice public hearing. All changes to the zoning code or zoning map or general plan all require a hearing first before the Planning Commission. The Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council, and then the City Council would consider the proposed changes at a notice public hearing. And with that, I would conclude my presentation, and I'm available to respond to comments or questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions of staff from the council? Do you have a timeline for when you think this might go to Planning Commission?
I am hoping to take it to the commission before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, I'll open public comment on there. Are there any requests to speak? No requests to speak. Anybody here tonight that would like to speak on this item?
Can we go back to the screen where, I think it was the first screen? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Go forward, please. The next one. That one right there. Thank you for restarting my timer. Jeffrey McConnell, 21758 Walnut Avenue. I would like to request how many of these contractor storage yards and other things were requested down in the 40 acres, and which kinds, and what kind of trucks would be used probably to supply them. Is that possible?
For the outdoor uses? Is that what you're asking for?
For this storage, yeah. And the outdoor uses.
Director Molina, do you have answer to that question?
On contractor storage yards, in the 40 acres, we've had concrete contractors want to establish on 5 acres down there, and one other use. But, and then we've had these uses proposed in other districts.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak at this time? All right, seeing no takers, I'll close public comment, and this is a receive and file. So I look forward to hearing more. And we'll move on to new business, which is award of October 2017 Community Benefits Fund. At this point, I'm going to recuse myself. While this is a Veterans Wall of Freedom Committee request, they are a committee of the Foundation of Grand Terrace, of which I am a board member. So I will be recusing myself, and Mayor Pro Tem will continue with this item.
Okay, have the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Cynthia Fortune, Assistant City Manager. Staff report before you is to approve the award from the city's Community Benefits Fund in the amount of $1,915 for the Foundation of Grand Terrace for the 2017 Veterans Day ceremony. The staff report supports the following City Council goals. Goal number 1, ensuring a fiscal viability through the continuous monitoring of revenue receipts and expenditure disbursements. And goal number 4, developing and implementing successful partnerships through productive collaborations with community groups, youth programs, and senior organizations. For the past 2 years, the City Council has approved the use of $25,000 in the city's general fund budget and established the Community Benefits Fund. The purpose of this fund is to provide funding for local programs, events, fee waivers, and to be used as an economic development tool for small business development in the city. Back at page 67 shows a table as how many awards and grants we've done for the last couple of years, totaling around $36,000. To date, on packet page 68, we've approved 4 grants. So we've received one application for this month. It is from the Foundation of Grand Terrace. The Foundation of Grand Terrace is dedicated to strengthening the community of Grand Terrace by working closely with its members, neighbors, and service organizations. This request, again, is for the Veterans Day ceremony. This event will start with a reception recognizing sponsors, and then the main event of the ceremony is to recognize and honor U.S. military veterans. Funds will be used for various ceremony supplies, flower arrangements, decorations, flag cases, presentation frames, and refreshments. As shown on packet page 69, the foundation has previously received 3 fund grant receipts, $350 in 2015, $2,000 in April 2016, and another $2,000 in April of 2017. Attached is also the grant application and a budget of what the $1,915 is to be used for. The total cost for the Veterans Day ceremony, as I was told by the chair, is estimated to be about $2,500. That concludes my report. I will be happy to answer any questions the City Council may have.
Councilman Duffy.
This is probably for Mr. Larkin. The budget is broken down to the refreshments, the pastries, fruit trays, and water and juice. Is that just for the sponsors, or is it open for all the guests that day?
First of all, for the reception, it's for recognizing the sponsors, but the public is invited also to that. So the reception, the refreshments and everything would be available for anyone in attendance. The water especially, we're going to have that, making sure that we have that later on for the ceremony.
Yeah, I just want to make sure like everybody has water, because I know it was hot that one time. And
yeah, last year, if you remember, we actually did it later at 1:30. The reason being because a lot of times there's conflicts with other cities and their ceremonies. This year we're going back to 11 o'clock. One of the reasons why is because of the temperature.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody's, yes, thank you.
Mr. Larkin, may I request that you put your name on the record, please?
Okay. Don Larkin, Veterans Wall of Freedom.
Any other members wishing to ask any questions? Okay, I just want to point out that in case the public has any questions why the foundation is asking for this money, is they're asking for it because the funds that would be used towards this event would be diverted from their efforts to complete the monument. So for that reason, I support this. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second, please vote.
Motion passes with council members Wilson and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Robles voting yes, Mayor McNabo abstain. Recused.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to item 8, which is to cancel City Council meetings scheduled November 28th, 2017 and December 26th, 2017. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mayor. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. Tonight, we're asking Council to approve the resolution canceling the City Council meeting scheduled for November 28, 2018 and December 26, 2017. I think I'd have a few slides.
You have one slide.
Okay, great. There we go. So if we look at the calendar for November 2017, we have Thanksgiving, and then the day after Thanksgiving, which City Hall is closed. But we also have, during that week, the City Council meeting. So I've been asked by the council to bring this item forward to see what the rest of the council would like to consider closing, not closing, but not having the City Council meeting on that that second Tuesday of the month, which is November 21st. Next, we have in December, we have Monday is Christmas, and it's a holiday. And then after that is the day after Christmas, and which is actually also the council meeting. And so therefore, we're requesting that we cancel those meetings, which will result in one meeting in November and one meeting in December.
Would you go back to November, please?
Yeah.
So that's, so I think you mean the 28th.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes. Yes, absolutely.
So we will not have one on the 21st, correct?
That's right. You will not.
Okay. And so you're saying the 28th, which would be
Yes.
the following week, after Thanksgiving.
After
So you'd
Thanksgiving.
have Thursday and Friday off, and then come back on Monday, and, okay. And so that gives you a short week to prepare for that.
Sorry about that. Just move that down there.
All right. Did you have more to your presentation?
That's it, Mayor.
All right.
And I think there's a recommendation. Should be there in the end.
Okay. Any further questions of staff? All right. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Okay. Then I'll bring it back to council for discussion and consideration of a motion. Councilman Hussey.
Well, I have nothing to do now. I'm retired. I was looking forward to those meetings. Can I just come in and sit down here or something? You know?
I'll come with you.
Okay.
You're going to stuff turkeys and wrap
Yeah,
gifts.
there you go.
You'll be busier than ever.
So was that a motion to?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2017, canceling the city council meeting schedule for November 28th, 2017, and December 26th, 2017.
I'll second. Oh, and I'm voting too.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Hussey and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Robles. Please vote. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Wilson and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Robles voting yes, Mayor McNamara voting yes.
All right, thank you. Move to item 9, which is cooperative agreement between the City of Grand Terrace and the City of Colton for the Eastern Barton Road Bridge Replacement Project. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Alan French, Public Works Director, here to present this item to you this evening, item number 9, the cooperative agreement with City of Colton for the environmental studies and design for the replacement of the Barton Road Bridge. This is for the western part of Barton Road. This item supports the 2030 goal number 2, public safety, by investing in critical improvements, and goal number 4, to develop successful partnerships. The existing bridge was built in 1929 and widened in 1941. As you can see, it's a steel beam girder bridge with riveted joints and has a concrete deck. Go back. As you can see here, the city line runs down the center of the railroad track at the midpoint of the bridge. The east side is the City of Grand Terrace, the west side is the City of Colton. So the City of Grand Terrace and Colton have been wanting to replace this bridge for many years, at least since 1999. I was able to find an available record which the city entered into an agreement to replace the bridge with Colton. There have since been agreements executed to move the project forward. And this latest one is to replace the bridge with compacted fill. Let's see. As the existing railroad line has been abandoned. The new road section will replace the east and westbound lanes with a similar type of road section. The previous agreements involved, in 2010, involved the railroad with the two cities. And then in 2012, this agreement assigned the City of Colton as the lead agency for the project. So since then, they've taken the lead and moved the project forward. This is the 2017 agreement. They have recently been awarded project costs, which are the HBP federal program. They qualified for an 88.53% grant to cover the majority of part of the bridge. The replacement costs will require 11.43% of local money matching, in which Colton and Grand Terrace will split that cost. And the table there shows how the cost breakdown is proposed. How the Grand Terrace portion would come from gas tax at this time. And then on the far right of the column, far right column, is the schedule, and that's the timeline that we're proposing at this time. Staff is recommending approval of the agreement with Colton for the preparation of reports, documents, and plans for the construction for the Barton Road Bridge project, and asking for authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Director French. Are there any questions of staff? Councilmember Hussey.
Mr. French, you probably won't know this answer, but in '99 and 2010 and 2012, with this bridge project and going with this agreement with Colton, was the city of Grand Terrace out any money on the prior arrangements? And is any money owed back to us since we didn't follow through on this, or?
Councilman Hussey, as far as I could tell, these were just agreements agreeing that the bridge needed to be replacement.
So there's no money exchanging hands to get consultants or anything like that back then, or?
From what I didn't see any with the documents that I had researched, but I didn't do a very deep research to get this information. This is what came up in our current program when we searched for that bridge. These documents showed up. So these were just assigning responsibilities in the past. As this one is just dictating which agency is going to pay which amount of money.
Well, I understand, Mr. French. Well, can we do research on it, see if any money?
Sure. Yes.
Cross hands or anything on this? But because I was hearing about this project long ago and how much money has been out and all this, and I don't know if this hearsay or what. I want to make sure that taxpayers are getting a refund, or there's no money that we have to pay out of it. But this is something I'm curious in, and for the taxpayers also.
Yes, Councilman Hussey, what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll do a records research to see on the financial side and also on the council report side to determine. As you know, the total project is like almost $3.5 million, and there's an 11% share split between the two of us. So we'll go back through and make sure that we don't pay more than our fair share for the project.
Yeah, I understand that. I just want to make sure if there was any money that they had a slush fund. I mean, dealing with, before with school districts and stuff, paying up front and everything. I just want to
We'll go through.
cross our T's.
We'll report back to you on that,
All
sir.
right, thank you.
Any further questions at this time? All right, is there any member of the public who would like to speak?
Jeff McConnell, 21758 Walnut Avenue. I have a couple of questions. Where can we follow the design of this bridge? I've heard talk about whether there might be a pass foot traffic underneath or not.
Mr. Duffy.
So it's my understanding, and so the project is currently being designed with the City of Colton staff. We'll have an opportunity to review that, but I don't believe that, this is an elevated road. There's no foot traffic underneath. So initially, the project was for a bridge replacement. But when the railroad abandoned the line,
Sure.
we moved forward, and they got approval for just the elevated road.
Right.
So I don't believe there's any foot traffic below. However, we are doing a urban greening grant, and part of that would be access to the Salmon River Trail from that point down the railroad line down to the Salmon River. So there'll be a design next to it, but there won't be any foot traffic on the bottom of the bridge.
Underneath.
There's no, it's just an elevated road, there's nothing underneath but the road base.
Okay, because I've been following it too for years, ever since Jerry Glander was here. And since then, I've heard talks of possibly having foot traffic underneath for the access to the river, which is nice and everything, except sometimes the people that when they walk down there, they walk through the backyards of these fine people right here. So we had some concerns about protecting their residences, if that were to happen. That's why I asked if, we could follow it.
And certainly you should be able to follow it as the bridge is one design. They'll come back to the council, and two, when the construction starts, we will provide information and also put it on the website.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak at this time? All right, seeing no takers, I'll close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
Madam Mayor, motion for approval and some discussion.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Wilson and a second by Councilmember Hussey. And Councilmember Wilson, you had discussion.
Yes, and I echo the concern about foot traffic, but one thing I think that might help us alleviate the situation, I see any provision in this agreement for digital copies to the city. When we do this kind of a joint agreement, it is good for, as it says in 3.1.7, I think it is. Anyway, it says, keep all documents, records, and files relating to the project. These documents will be open for review. Big deal. We need to get some digital copies to us so far as interim, because in this day and age, I don't think there's a reasonable nexus to withhold progress. So I think it's easy for us to at least take a look at what the design is, and digital copies are the best way to do it, maybe on a plan site or something else. And then at the end of it, for Public Works, for their benefit, we should have an as-built. Because no matter what the City of Colton does, it has nothing against the City of Colton or their process. It's just that it's good policy for us to have as-built plans so that everybody that does any work within our right-of-way can actually pull the plans and go, oh, yeah, I see this. And then last but not least, this bridge is almost as old as I am, since it was built in 1929. So it would seem to me, there have been a lot of changes in this community, and some folks have expressed a concern about whether or not there's going to be some historical acknowledgement. Now, I'm not talking about the idea of making it a historical monument so we can't take the bridge down. That's not the intention. I think it's a good idea now that the railroad has abandoned their easement or their right-of-way. But I think it would be appropriate for us, since it's one of the few things we can, declare as 100 years old or close to 100 years old, that we have some sort of acknowledgement that, it was built by so-and-so and, and before we actually tear the thing down or, or anything else in the city that old. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Wilson, are you wanting to amend the agreement with the digital copy and the as-built?
I mean, I would just like to get that into the record so that we can follow it as a policy.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Wilson and a second by Councilmember Hussey. If you would, please vote.
Motion passes with Council Members Wilson and Hussey voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Robles voting yes, Mayor McNabo voting yes.
Thank you. Item 10 is a revised child care services lease agreement with Family Services Association. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Mayor. So this staff report approves the revised lease agreement with Family Services Association in substantially similar form to the attached lease agreement. And so this supports goal number 1, to ensure our fiscal viability. On May 23, 2017, the City Council approved a lease agreement with Family Services. The terms of the agreement included at least for 3 years. The first year was supposed to be $10,000 per year. The second year was supposed to be $11,000 per year. And the third year was supposed to be $12,000 per year. In addition to that, we were going to be getting additional revenue based upon them exceeding the $150,000 maximum amount, and we would be getting additional revenue based on that. Included in the lease agreement was the transfer of the state license to FSA. Over the past few months, though, considering efforts were completed for both parties to prepare the state inspection. So we did complete the state inspection, and the license has been transferred at this point in time. However, during the course of our original agreement from May 23rd, several changes happened to the agreement. So those changes occurred where the school district originally declined to provide FSA a facility for the after-school program. Then later, they agreed to provide the after-school site, but wanted to charge them for the services. And so FSA sent out an initial message that they were no longer having the after-school program, and then when they started the program, they lost a significant amount. Then, as we started to transfer the license, FSA sent out for the state inspector to come out and to inspect for the license, and the license in which they received actually limited the number of students that they were going to have, less than what we currently have on the site. So because of those particular issues, we crafted a new agreement, and the terms include this: the lease of the property for 1 term instead of 3 years, rent from July 2017 through December 2017 is 0, and then rent from January 2017 through June 2017 at $7,000. We also have some caveats within the lease that requires FSA to provide the city with notice. FSA is to enter into escrow with the city in April. If they do not enter escrow with the city, their lease would terminate June 30th, 2017. If they enter if they enter into escrow with us, they must close escrow by June 30th, and the appraised value for the facility is roughly $1 million. And that would take the city completely out of the child care business and liquidate all of the assets they have for that. And FSA would still remain on site to provide child care services to the community. With that, Mayor, I'm available for any questions.
All right. Any questions of staff? Councilmember Wilson.
Just one question. In the fiscal impact, it didn't identify the actual loss to the city compared to what we had forecasted. It said that the general fund expected to receive $42,000 in annual revenue. But it seems to me that if we're going to give them 6 months worth of rent for free, and then they're going to reduce their rent in the future months with the idea that they might have they'll have an option to purchase the building, we are under financial stress regardless of this agreement.
Yes, sir. And so the initial agreement with the city was for a rent of $120,000 a year, and we were going to be allowing them a 50% credit on that $120,000 toward the purchase of the building. And so under this new agreement, we expect to receive only $42,000, and that $42,000 would also apply towards the final purchase. So yes, it is. We will be taking a loss, but the concept is that the liquidation of the asset will make us not whole, but will reduce the overall impact of that loss.
Any other questions of staff? Is there anyone that would like to speak at this time? I'll open public hearing. No request to speak at this time. I'll close public hearing and bring it back to council for deliberation and consideration of a motion.
I'll move to approve the revised lease agreement with Family Service Association in substantially similar form to the attached lease agreement.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Robles, second by Councilmember Hussey. Would you please vote?
Motion passes with Councilmember Hussey, Mayor Pro Tem Robles, Mayor McNabo voting yes, Councilmember Wilson voting no.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to city manager communications.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I do have a couple items that I'll be adding to the report backlog based on comments I heard from the council tonight. The report backlog will have some entries that include an update on the weed abatement process. Also, there was a request to, and this is the second request actually, to reach out to Pasta Italia owner Walt and his wife and see if they will come in for recognition for their long service in the city and having a business in the city. Also talked about seeing if the new owner would like to come out. Also, we were going to report back on the funding and also any council reports from the past on the bridge project to ensure that the city of Grand Terrace is not paying more than its fair share of 11%. Its share of 11%. And also Councilman Wilson asked for us to make sure that we receive as-built plans for the project, in addition to identifying some method to make the bridge a historical marker as we move forward in the future. And then I have one other item.
Mr. Duffy, before you leave that, I think that Councilmember Hussey wanted to not only know that we're not paying more than our fair share, but wanted to know if funds had exchanged hands prior to this current agreement.
Yes, absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll make sure if funds did change hands, that it goes toward our 11%, our share of the 11% contribution. Absolutely, sir. Okay. One last item is just to save the date, and the Light Up Grand Terrace event's going to be held November 30th, 2017 at 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. At 22633 Barton Road. That's right at the center of Barton and Palm, actually, as you come down Barton Road. So put that on your calendar. It should be a nice event. It's growing every year. Thank you, Mayor.
I think there's one other event that's happening this Friday.
Yes, absolutely.
So October 13th.
Is the I-215.
At 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. is the I-215 Barton Road Bridge interchange kickoff.
Ceremonial groundbreaking.
For the $105 million Barton Road interchange project, which will change the face entryway for the city of Grand Terrace.
I have a question for either you and legal counsel or both, but we all have a receipt of a letter from Riverside Highland. So is that still a closed agenda item, or can you report some progress on that at the next meeting?
It's a closed session item.
Okay.
But I can certainly, you can get an update in the closed session. We'll add that on to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember.
Friday Night Lights, Grand Terrace versus Colton, here at Grand Terrace.
All right, thank you. So we will close tonight in memory of Dana Gardner, and we will adjourn this meeting to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held Tuesday, October 24th, 2017 at 6 p.m. Agenda item requests must be submitted in writing to the city clerk's office no later than 14 calendar days prior to the meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you all for being here tonight.